Good morning, students. Today we'll start the new chapter, breathing and exchange of gases. That is chapter number 17 in human physiology. First, you see the organs of respiratory system. As you know that in our body, the main organ is lungs, where respiration or gases exchange takes place. See the parts of respiratory system: nasal cavity, then nostril, larynx, pharynx, bronchus, bronchi, and bronchioles. Epiglottis is the flap-like structure which covers the windpipe in the pharynx. Then larynx is there. Larynx, that is a voice box. Trachea, windpipe, that divided into two parts. In the chest, that is bronchus, and bronchus divides into bronchioles. And in the lungs, that is divided into small chambers known as alveoli. Lungs is covered with the pleural membrane. Between that, pleural fluid is there. Two lungs are there, left and right. Between, heart is situated. Respiration involves the following steps. First step is the breathing. Breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and carbon dioxide-rich alveolar air is released out. Diffusion of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, occurs across alveolar membrane. Transport of gases by the blood. Diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and tissues. Breathing. Two steps are there of breathing: inhalation and exhalation. In inhalation, the fresh air enters within the lungs. In that time, ribs and sternum raised up. Volume of thorax is increased, and the volume of the lungs increases. That results entry of fresh air in the lungs. In the exhalation, the foul air that is expelled from the lungs. Volume of thorax cavity decreases. Diaphragm becomes relaxed and arched. Ribs and sternum return to the original position. So in that way, inhalation and exhalation takes place, and that process is known as breathing. Now see the mechanism of breathing. Inspiration can occur if the pressure within the lungs, that is intrapulmonary pressure, is less than the atmospheric pressure. That is, there is a negative pressure in the lungs with respect to the atmospheric pressure. Similarly, expiration takes place when intrapulmonary pressure is higher than the atmospheric pressure. The diaphragm and a specialized set of muscles, external, internal, intercostal muscles between the ribs, help in generation of such gradients. Inspiration is initiated by the contraction of diaphragm, which increases the volume of thoracic chamber in the anteroposterior axis. The contraction of external intercostal muscles lifts up the ribs and the sternum, causing an increase in the volume of the thoracic chamber in the dorsoventral axis. The overall increase in the thoracic volume causes a similar increase in pulmonary volume. An increase in pulmonary volume decreases the intrapulmonary pressure. to the lungs. Respiratory volume and capacities. Tidal volume. The volume of air inspired or expired during normal respiration, it is approx 500 ml. A healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 ml of air per minute. Inspiratory reserve volume IRV. Additional volume of air a person can inspire by a forcible inspiration. This average 2,500 ml to 3,000 ml. Expiratory reserve volume or ERV. Additional volume of air a person can expire by forcible expiration. This averages 1000 ml to 1100 ml. Residual volume RV. Volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration. This average 1100 ml to 1200 ml. This residual volume is remain present in the lungs all the times, which continue the uninterrupted supply of oxygen to the blood. By adding up a few respiratory volume described above, one can derive various pulmonary capacity which can be used in clinical diagnosis. Inspiratory capacity. Total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. This includes tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. Expiratory capacity. Total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. This includes tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. Functional residual capacity FRC, volume of air that will remain in the lungs after a normal expiration. This includes ERV plus RV. Vital capacity, the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. This includes ERV plus TV and IRV, or the maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after a forced inspiration. This vital capacity is very useful in the case of sports activity for the athletes, for the runners, for the swimmers. This vital capacity decides the stamina of a athlete person. Here is the diagrammatic representation of exchange of gases at the alveolus and the body tissue with blood and transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Basically, the exchange of gases takes place due to the difference in the partial pressure of the gases between the alveoli and the blood vessels. In the alveolar air, the partial pressure of oxygen is 104 mm of Hg and carbon dioxide is 40 mm of Hg, and in the blood, the partial pressure is less, so the oxygen from the alveoli that is diffuses from alveoli to the blood, and oxygen diffuses from blood to the alveoli. Near the tissue, the partial pressure of oxygen is 95, that is less, so oxygen from blood that diffuses in the tissue, and carbon dioxide diffuses from tissue to the blood, and through the circulatory system it reaches to the alveoli, and the same process starts. Alveoli, oxygen diffusion. Partial pressure 100 mm Hg that comes in the blood circulatory system. In the tissue, oxygen is released and carbon dioxide is received. The partial pressure in the venous blood, it becomes 40. and in the alveoli it is 100. So there is a difference in the partial pressure, so diffusion takes place. In the same way, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveoli is 40 and in the venous blood it is 46. So carbon dioxide diffuses from impure blood to the alveoli and then the partial pressure of carbon dioxide becomes 40. The diffusion membrane is made up of three major layers, namely the thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, the endothelium of alveolar capillaries, and the basement substances in between them. However, its total thickness is much less than a millimeter. Therefore, all the factors in our body are favorable for diffusion of oxygen from alveoli to tissue and that of carbon dioxide from tissue to alveoli. Transport of respiratory gases. Blood is the medium of transport for oxygen and carbon dioxide. About 90% of oxygen is transported by RBC in the blood, and the remaining 3% of oxygen is carried in a dissolved state through the plasma. Hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. In an area where oxygen concentration is high, hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. In an area where oxygen concentration is low, oxyhemoglobin breaks into hemoglobin and oxygen. Transport of carbon dioxide. Nearly 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported by RBC, where 70% of it is carried as bicarbonate. About 7% of carbon dioxide is carried in a dissolved state through plasma. Carbon dioxide combines with water in presence of carbonic anhydrase to form hydrogen carbonate, and very soon it breaks into carbonate ion and proton. So in that way it is transported in the blood. Body tissue and blood capillary. See the movement of diffusion of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide comes in the blood and combines with water to form bicarbonate. In that way it is transported in the blood. Oxygen from lungs combines with red blood cells hemoglobin molecules and forms the oxyhemoglobin, and then it breaks and oxygen is released. See the transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide, alveoli, circulatory system and tissues. Regulation of respiration. Human beings have a significant ability to maintain and moderate the respiratory rhythm to suit the demands of the body tissues. This is done by the neural system. Neural system means brain. A specialized center present in the medulla region of the brain called respiratory rhythm center is primarily responsible for this regulation. Another center present in the pons medulla region of the brain called pneumataxic center can moderate the functions of the respiratory rhythm center. Neural signal from the center can reduce the duration of inspiration and thereby after the respiratory rate. A chemosensitive area is situated adjacent to the rhythm center, which is highly sensitive to carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. Increase in these substances can activate this center, which in turn can signal the rhythm center to make necessary adjustment in the respiratory process by which these substances can be eliminated. See the control of respiration, how the different parts of the brain responsible for the controlling of nervous respiratory activities in our body. Pneumotaxic area, apnostic area, expiratory area, medullary rhythmic area of the brain that is present in the medulla oblongata, pons varolii of the hindbrain. Disorders of the respiratory system. Asthma is a difficulty in breathing causing wheezing due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Emphysema is a chronic disorder in which alveolar walls are damaged due to which respiratory surface is decreased. One of the major causes of this is cigarette smoking. Occupational respiratory disorders. In certain industries, especially those involve grinding or stone breaking, so much dust is produced that the defense mechanism of the body control fully cope up with this situation. Long exposure can give rise to inflammation leading to fibrosis, proliferation of fibrous tissue, and thus causing serious lung damage. Workers in such industries should wear protective masks.